Hi, Darcy.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. So glad to be here with you.
So glad, I'm so excited to have this conversation. Thank you so much for taking this conversation, taking this call early in the morning. And welcome everyone to Growth Mindset Conversations. Please let us know if you can see us live. Do comment on whichever medium you are watching us so that we know that, we are actually live. So, Darcy, what's your time right now?
My time, it is 8 a.m. Eastern time here. So
Yeah. It's
yes,
quite early.
that's not terribly early. So, but
Okay.
it's a good start. It's a great way to start the day to be able to chat with you. And your
Thank you so
time,
much.
you in India today. Where then? What time is it
So
for you?
it's evening 5:30.
Yes. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank
So
you so much. Thank you.
I always think it's wonderful, what we get to connect with our friends on other sides of the world these days. So so happy to
Yeah,
have a chance to chat with you here.
absolutely. Let's have fun. Welcome everyone. Please join me in welcoming our guest today, Darcy Eikenberg. Darcy, am I pronouncing your name in the right way?
You are Eichenberg, like I can. Yes, that's how
I
you
can.
pronounce it.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So Darcy Eikenberg is on a mission to help us change our lives at work without having to change everything in our lives, especially during times of great change. She's the author of Red Cape Rescue, Save Your Career Without Leaving Your Job, which shows how to get more of what you want without resorting to drastic measures of changing careers or finding a new job, and without sacrificing your health or family life. Her strategies help generate more clarity, confidence, and control. Plus, they inspire a bit of courage to help handle our complex lives at work. She's coached leaders at companies such as Aon, the Coca-Cola Company, State Farm, and Deloitte, and offers encouraging ways to change work for the better for good. And today she's going to help us on the topic of how leaders can counteract chaos to enhance their impact. Welcome again, Darcy. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. Thank you so much for inviting me here.
So, Darcy, as the show is called Growth Mindset Conversations, so the first question I always tend to ask is, what is growth mindset for you?
A growth mindset for me is not letting yourself stay stuck. And what I mean by that is that the way the brain works is the brain wants to keep us safe, right? The brain wants
Mhm.
to keep us from doing things that flood our hormones, that make us, feel uncertain and scared. And the world's full of that kind of thing. And so it's really easy to listen to that prehistoric part of our brain and stay still and stay stuck. And yet, I think those of us who have worked on our growth mindset, those of us who have what I call conquered the battle of the brain, who know that growth is the only way to our next step, the only way to get more of what we want, um, we know that we can't just let ourselves stay stuck. We can't
Yeah.
stay in the swirl. And so a growth mindset is recognizing, first of all, it's human if we get stuck, if we get like, I don't know what's next, but not letting yourself stay there and saying,
Yeah.
okay, great. What do I control? How can I push out of this? What do I need to ask for? What do I need to do? So to me, that's the growth mindset of of moving forward, even when there's that little bitty voice in your head that just says, I'm stuck. I need to stop.
Yeah. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to move forward. And that's what you're saying, right? It
Yeah.
happens with everyone, but what do you do at that particular time decides whether you have growth mindset or not.
Yeah, and I do worry that in a lot of cases,
Hmm.
as we listen to sometimes the themes and the emotions in the media, that we get reinforced to stay stuck. It's almost like, oh, it's okay to stay stuck. That, oh, yes, the world is hard and work is hard. And, but those of us who know that there are ways to continue to grow, there are ways to continue
Yeah.
to take control for
Yeah.
ourselves. You can accept the fact that there are parts of the world and there are situations in your own world that aren't perfect, but you get to take more control than I think people give themselves credit for. And I think that's
Yeah.
such an important part about the growth mindset, of recognizing what you actually do control.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Acknowledging and then deciding what can you control and move forward. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. So now aligning it with today's topic, counteracting chaos, for leadership, so that they can enhance their impact. So leaders feel overwhelmed in chaos, and there are different scenarios where they can feel chaotic. So let's take a step back here and start from the start and understand the word chaos. How would you define chaos in a leader's life?
Well, I think chaos to some degree echoes what we were saying before, is that chaos feels like that there are multiple things going on and we're in control of nothing. And I think the
Yeah,
challenge with the challenge is, it's almost through the eyes of the beholder, right? Because life is chaos. There are always things that are moving. Nothing stays the same. Um, I remember a line from a writer who said that at one time in her life, she wished that it could be like on the New York subway trains, where they used to, have the lever you could pull to stop the train in an emergency. It's like, stop everything. I just want everything to freeze for a moment, so I have a moment to figure things out. Well, as a leader, you don't have that magic stop pull. You can't just freeze. Things do keep moving. And that can feel like chaos. But
yeah,
I also think that we can attack the chaos with recognizing where we are in control, where we're not, and then also thinking about using creativity. What is, what's now possible because of the chaos, instead of focusing on what's not possible. And this, I think, does go back again to a growth mindset of less about playing the victim, less about being in that place where, oh my gosh, we just have to wait the chaos out, and instead asking, what opportunity does this present us?
mm, yeah, yeah. And I see a lot of acknowledgement, a lot of self-reflection here, right?
Oh, I do think that self-reflection is the new self-help skill, if you will. I think that,
Absolutely.
and you and I as professional coaches, obviously one of the things, one of the things that we do as a profession is to help engage in structured self-reflection, in partnered self-reflection, and
Yep.
accountability. Because I do
Yeah.
think that a lot of times people aren't taught how to do self-reflection, and not just
Yeah.
self-reflection where you're sitting and you're kind of going in a circle, but self-reflection that actually can lead you to an experiment, to a test, to a pilot. Because
Mm,
we can think about all these things a lot and think, oh my gosh, we've got all this chaos. Okay, great. I'm a leader. I'm responsible. What do I do next? It's We do have to recognize where our own biases come into play, or where our own pressures come into play. And I don't know about you, but I often will say, you can't see the label from inside the jar. When you're in the mix of something, it's sometimes very hard to see what someone else looking in from the outside can see about
absolutely.
how you're making decisions, or how you're choosing to go about a situation, or even helping you sort through where to start. Sometimes I think that that's a piece where my clients are very appreciative of just the opportunity to just have a verbal bulletin board to kind of sort through and figure out, oh, that's the first
Yeah.
place, because if I fix that, then all these other things get fixed a lot easier.
Yeah. I love the metaphor you used. You can't look at the label when you're inside the jar. I think that's such a powerful metaphor. And you said self reflection is a new self help. I think I would not have put it in any better way. So thank you so much for bringing in that metaphor and that powerful statement. I guess self reflection is really really very very powerful. And partnering with someone, it could be coach, it could be anyone. So partnering with someone so that somebody can help you read the label, somebody can help you the impact of that chaos which you are defining. It could be only created by you, I don't know, it might be, right? So how do you want to handle it is based on what is your understanding. Very powerful, Darcy. So, I mean, you said, creativity, of course, will happen. They will, have creative solutions once they understand the chaos. So, what are the other strategies for a leader to handle chaos? How can they bring some clarity? Because chaos is a messy situation, right?
Yes, of course. And so I think that one of the first things when a leader finds themselves, or maybe the truth is admits that they are in chaos, because a lot of times I do think that we muscle through, we just keep muscling through, and we play from moment to moment and day from day, and we don't take that step back and look at all of what's going on and just take that breath. And sometimes we feel the pressure that all I can do is keep moving forward in this day instead of actually creating that space. And I'll often talk to somebody about like taking that little bit of space uh, can help you go faster later, but it doesn't feel like it in the moment. So there is that checking yourself that you're not just continuing to do the slog, that if it's feeling hard and you're not clear on the path, we've got to lift our head up before going back heads down. And so I think then that's when the opportunities for creativity can come up. And I have a lot of people who said to me, I'm not creative. I can't just make things up. Well, the truth is, though, all of the work that we do is all made up. It's all been made up by somebody. Even in organizations where I work that have very long-term processes or strict ways that they do things, if the past couple of years hasn't shown us anything at all, it's shown us that we can break those rules and create new rules in an
Absolutely.
instant when we need to. So
Yeah.
why not, if you're in chaos, if you're feeling like we're in the swirl, we're not moving forward, this is not
Mm-hmm.
progress, this is not engaging people, this isn't giving results for our clients or our customers, taking that step back and recognizing that we can make something else up. We can make a different choice. And I
Yeah.
mentioned this before, but I do often will advise people to use terms like experiment or a pilot or a test, because if we're trying to break old habits, old organizational cultural habits that have created the chaos, or maybe there's a new situation that there's no rule book for,
Yeah.
by talking to your people or just deciding to say, let's try an experiment and time bind it and put it in a small dose, that starts to feel fun, right? That starts to feel like a way that you can engage a team around something, because it makes it okay if it fails. If it's an
Yeah.
experiment and it fails, we don't lose, we just learn. And so I
Yeah.
do think that the companies that are really thriving right now with so much that's going on, the leaders
Yeah.
who are
Yeah.
really thriving and thriving for themselves too, like not driving themselves to a level of personal stress where they're going to burn out, are
Yeah.
ones that are taking the chaotic opportunities and saying, what could we try differently here? Where might be the creativity? Where's the experiment?
Yeah.
Where's the test? And
Yeah.
just not doing the same old things.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And what you're saying is stepping back, applying creativity. All these things, what you're saying is, a lot I see to do with mindset. And before I, ask you about mindset, I would like to acknowledge the audience, whosoever is joining us live. Thank you so much for joining us live. And while you are listening or watching the show, do pour in suggestions how leaders can counteract chaos. What is your perspective? What has been helping you? So please do pour in. We are all learning from each other. So do pour in your point of view. Do ask your questions if you have any questions. So we have a wonderful comment here that some leaders love chaos. And I really, would like to say that yes, absolutely. Some leaders really love chaos. What do you think, Darcy, before we come to the mindset thing? What do you think about that?
Well, I think some people seem like they love chaos because it creates a feeling of importance. It creates a
Mhm.
feeling of being needed.
Yeah,
And so there is an aspect of, if you are working with a leader who is like that, who is like, this is my opportunity to prove myself, this is my opportunity to then this is why they really need me, then I think we have to recognize, is there a different way that person can get what they need? And sometimes this can happen at different levels in the organization too, right? You might have a lower level person who waits to the last minute for everything because he wants to be the hero, to come to the rescue. Oh, I worked all night to get this done, and those kind of things. So how do we recognize that there is something inherent there that they need as a person? And whether that means having an honest discussion with them, whether that means
yeah,
playing out the consequences of their behavior, but still figuring out, how do they get the thing that they need? Because if,
yeah,
when people can see a different route to get what they need, they're open to change. When we're just talking to them through the lens of our values, they'll never change because it's not what they value.
yeah,
So that, I think those are strategies when it's getting in your way.
yeah.
There are also ways where other people's chaos doesn't have to mean your chaos. I feel like this way
Ah,
about the world in many ways. That the fact that there's a lot of swirl around certain issues or things doesn't mean you have to take that on, and and we get to choose. And I often think that is harder and takes more deliberate energy today than it ever used to. But it is our
yeah,
choice of,
yeah,
is this an issue I want to get excited about? Or is this an issue that I just want to watch and be a good person, who understands what's going on in the world, but it's not my issue to
yeah,
engage in right now, because
absolutely.
we don't have the bandwidth to care
Yeah.
deeply about everything. We really have to pick the things where we can have an influence, where we can have some control.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think that again stems from self-reflection, self-awareness, making choices very mindfully. So again, I think this also relates to a lot of these things relate to the mindset. So
Mhm.
what mindset changes or behavioral changes leaders need to do to counteract, to handle this chaos to navigate in today's volatile world?
So I think of your mindset often starts with understanding your values. And I talk
Um,
about this in my book, and I've talked about this in other places. And many coaches, have tools and things to really help you narrow in on your values. But often I find that a lot of conflict or a lot of questioning, whether inner questioning or questioning among a team, comes from a conflict of values. And so if all I can control are three things: what I think, what I say, and what I do, then
mhm.
me knowing my values, knowing the things that are valuable to me, the types of characteristics that I am going to always prioritize over other things. Um, that helps me recognize, then, where do I want to step in? What's important to me? And when I have conflict, what's the value that someone else is showing, or that a competitor is showing, or a different organization that is rubbing against the value that I have? This is one of the
Yeah,
challenges I think that is happening in company cultures right now, is that there might be a set of values on the wall, but is every leader acting and executing in accordance with the values? Is every business decision and process aligned with the values? And sometimes our values are just too vague that we can't make good decisions from them, and so then we create lack of trust, because like you said, people are our first important thing, and now we're laying off 600. What's the what's the justification
Yeah,
there?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so I do think that a leader has to recognize what their values are, and then also
Mm-hmm.
recognize, do we have a set of values in this company, and are there things that I'm doing or that my people are doing, or way we're making decisions, that are actually rubbing against it and therefore decreasing trust? And I think a lot of
Yeah.
that is a mind starts with the mindset of knowing, who do you want to be? Who are you aspiring to be value wise? Because then your actions and your decisions all come from that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Values is such an important thing, and alignment of your values with the organization's value. And as you said many times, values are some labels or stickers on the wall. And I've also seen, Darcy, that, I don't know what's your experience, but in my experience of working with leaders, is that people even don't know what is the right way to live those values because
Yeah.
it has never been discussed in detail. They don't know what does it mean. I mean, integrity, professionalism, creativity, all these can be English words, but what does this mean to me as a human being, me as a leader, as an organization? That those discussions needs to happen.
Yeah. And I actually think that at a company level, I'm not certain that values, unless they're very specific, are as important as you knowing your personal values and
Yeah.
knowing where, what's the lens where you make decisions. And I've had
Hmm.
a couple of situations where knowing your values has helped screen out different conflicts. So, for example, I had a client who really valued cooperation. She really
Hmm.
valued like being part of everything, and inclusion, and that connectivity, but was being left out of different meetings by a peer of hers, and
Yeah.
it just frustrated her, and she just couldn't imagine. She read it as an insult, but when they finally talked and she brought it up to her and said, "Hey, I noticed that you're leaving me out of this XYZ meetings." You found that that other person had a value of freedom and flexibility, and actually thought
Absolutely.
she was doing my client a favor by leaving her out, because in her value, these weren't meetings where there was anything terribly productive. She could get caught up later. She was censoring the time, because she thought, well, I'm going to give my colleague all this freedom, but
Yeah.
my colleague was
Yeah.
reading it as, I'm not included. So this is also really important to understand the lens that we go through, that we make decisions from, because it may not be the same as somebody else's.
Absolutely. We are all different. Yeah. So, I mean, as we are coming towards the end of the show, so I would also like to align all this to, the work you are doing, your book. So, do share some exercise, some framework, anything from your book which can help leaders handle chaos.
Sure. Well, I think that probably the chapter in the book that that speaks most to chaos. There are a couple, but the one that comes to mind is to assume positive intent.
Mm-hmm.
And in the book is divided into different ways that you can take back control over your career and your life. So what you can think, how you can think differently, to mindset, what you can say differently, with including different scripts and things you can say, and what you can do differently. And one of the things you can think differently, to mindset, is to assume positive intent, to not just automatically, especially through email and text, to make snap decisions about what somebody means, to actually stop and take that moment. And when you feel yourself react, when something hits your you know your bone that goes, that puts your fists up, to take that breath and to be able to assume positive intent and say, what else could this mean? And maybe that allows you to ask a better question. Maybe it allows you to
Mm-hmm.
actually let that email sit in your box for a minute instead of firing something back. And I tell a story in the book about, a person who had an email that he read into all sorts of things to it, and later found that what the real situation was had nothing to do with the story that he was making up in his head. And so I think I see this happen all the time,
Yep.
where we hear an off comment, or we read something and we react according to our lens. But what if we stopped and assumed positive intent? What if we stopped and said, what else could this mean? Is there something
Yeah.
else going on here?
Yeah.
And assume that people aren't out to hurt us or make us look bad. That actually assume that most people are there to help us and to help us move forward. And that's a mindset. It's a mindset
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In the work of conversational intelligence by Judith Glaser, so she talks about a term called double clicking. So she says all of us use same words, but we have different meanings associated with those words. So double click on those words, and I'm hearing a lot about that. Double click, understand what else can it mean. Else can it mean for the other person? How can I understand it better? Yeah, you're
You
calling
know,
it positive intent. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so ironic to me that in an age where we're still giving people advice like be shorter, be brief, keep it down to just the simple words, that's actually not good advice anymore. That we actually need to
Yeah.
communicate more. We actually need to get more specific and more detailed, and not to go on forever, but when we try to truncate things, communication doesn't work, and especially in digital forms. And the
Yeah,
Erica Dewan's great book on digital communication is one I recommend
absolutely.
on this
Erica's,
too,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, Erica is too good. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Thank you, Darcy. And one last question before we wind up, that how can people reach out to you?
The best way to be in touch on a regular basis is to join my insider community, where I share stories every week, and that's redcapeinsiders.com. But my website with everything else and a lot of free tools is redcaperevolution.com. And there you'll also find the book, which is called Red Cape Rescue: Save Your Career Without Leaving Your Job.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Darcy, for helping us deal with chaos. I enjoyed our conversation and learned a lot in this particular discussion.
Oh, me too. Thanks so much for having me and for leading these conversations for all of us. They're always very
Thank
helpful.
you. Thank you. And I'm sure all of you who are watching this show must have found this discussion insightful and great and helpful to you. I would like to thank all of you who have joined us live and all of those who will be watching the recording. Wishing you all the very best, and we'll see you soon in the next episode of Growth Mindset Conversations. Thank you, Darcy. See you soon. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye for now.